Imagine being laughed at by the person who signs your paycheck, only to watch that same person later stare at you in disbelief when you become the one holding her billion-dollar future in your hands. That's exactly what happened when a powerful CEO mocked her own driver, unaware that he spoke 9 languages, and one day that hidden skill would save everything she had built. If you're part of the Black Visionaries family, hit that like button right now and subscribe for more jaw-dropping stories like this one. Caroline Price was the kind of CEO who never walked into a room, she took it. At just 45, she had built one of the largest tech conglomerates in America, a company valued at $6 billion, with products in every home and offices on every continent. Her face had graced the covers of Forbes, Time, and Business Weekly. Investors praised her brilliance, competitors envied her ruthlessness. To the world, she was untouchable. But behind closed doors, her reputation was far less glamorous. To her staff, Caroline was cold, sharp-tongued, and dismissive. She didn't thank assistants. She didn't remember names. And she certainly didn't see her driver, Marcus Hayes, as anything more than part of the leather seats he chauffeured her in. Marcus was a man in his late 30s, broad-shouldered with a calm presence that seemed unshakable. He was punctual, disciplined, and unfailingly polite. Every morning, he polished the black Mercedes until it gleamed, opened doors with a quiet nod, and drove through Manhattan's chaos with steady precision. Caroline never asked about his life. She didn't know he had once been a top student at a university abroad. She didn't know that in his younger years, he had lived in 5 countries. To her, Marcus was simply the driver. One evening, after a grueling 12-hour day of meetings, Caroline climbed into the backseat of the car, phone pressed to her ear. She was speaking with a board member about an upcoming acquisition. Her laughter was sharp, almost cruel. "My driver probably doesn't understand a word of this anyway," she said, her voice dripping with arrogance. "Not his fault. People like him don't get business." The words cut through the quiet air of the car. Marcus heard every syllable. His grip on the steering wheel tightened slightly, but his face remained calm, unreadable. He didn't reply, didn't even glance in the mirror. He simply drove her home as though nothing had happened. But deep inside, he carried a truth she could never have guessed. 2 weeks later, that truth would change everything. Caroline was preparing for the most important negotiation of her career, a potential $1 billion merger with a European conglomerate that would double her company's reach. The deal wasn't just about money, it was about legacy. This was the kind of move that would etch her name into business history. She flew to Geneva with her team of lawyers, analysts, and assistants. Marcus was assigned, as always, to accompany her, driving her to meetings, waiting in lobbies, carrying luggage without a word. She barely acknowledged him, too consumed by spreadsheets and late-night strategy sessions. The day of the negotiation arrived. Caroline entered the gleaming glass tower of the European firm, her confidence radiating as always. Marcus remained in the background, standing discreetly by the wall in his crisp uniform. But as the delegates filled the boardroom, something immediately went wrong. Their official translator had not arrived. The French CEO, the German attorney, and the Italian financial officer began speaking rapidly in their native tongues, trying to sort out key details. Caroline smiled at first, expecting it to be resolved quickly. But as the minutes dragged on, her composure began to crack. She leaned toward her assistant, whispering sharply, "Where is the translator? This is $1 billion deal. We cannot afford to stumble." But no translator came. The room became a storm of voices. The French executive barked numbers in French. The German lawyer countered in German. The Italian finance officer grew agitated, papers rustling as tempers flared. Misunderstandings piled up. Caroline, unable to follow the flurry of languages, sat frozen. Every attempt to redirect the meeting in English failed miserably. Her billion-dollar deal was slipping through her fingers. She adjusted her blazer, cleared her throat, and tried to assert herself. "Gentlemen, let's focus." But they ignored her. Their argument grew louder, more chaotic. The Europeans were moments away from walking out. And then a voice cut through the room. "Excuse me," Marcus said softly, stepping forward from the back. Every head turned. Caroline's eyes narrowed. "Marcus, not now." But before she could dismiss him, Marcus spoke again, this time in flawless French. The French CEO froze mid-sentence, his eyebrows rising in surprise. Marcus addressed him directly, his tone respectful but commanding. Then Marcus turned to the German lawyer and responded in equally precise German, his cadence steady, his accent authentic. Finally, he switched to Italian, addressing the finance officer with perfect fluency. The room fell silent. Caroline's jaw went slack. She stared at the man she had once laughed at, the man she had never bothered to know, as he effortlessly bridged the chasm that had threatened to destroy her deal. The executives, once frustrated, now leaned forward eagerly. With Marcus translating, the chaos transformed into order. He clarified terms, smoothed over tensions, and guided the conversation with a mastery that no machine or professional interpreter could have matched. His command of 9 languages, French, German, Italian, Spanish, Arabic, Mandarin, Russian, Portuguese, and, of course, English, turned the entire meeting around. For nearly 3 hours, Marcus orchestrated the discussion like a conductor leading an orchestra. Every time conflict flared, he calmed it with the right words. Every time confusion arose, he cut through it with precision. The executives looked at him with admiration and respect, treating him not as a driver, but as the central figure who saved the negotiation. Caroline sat frozen, her usual icy confidence replaced with awe and a creeping sense of shame. The man she had dismissed as invisible was the only reason her empire wasn't crumbling before her eyes. At last, the contract was signed. The billion-dollar merger was secured. Applause echoed through the boardroom, and one by one, the European delegates shook Marcus's hand before they shook Caroline's. As they left the building, Caroline walked behind Marcus, her heels clicking against the marble floor, the weight of humility pressing down on her like a stone. She climbed into the car, but for the first time in her life, she couldn't speak. Finally, she whispered, almost reluctantly, "Marcus, I owe you everything. I didn't know." Marcus met her gaze in the rearview mirror, his expression calm but his eyes piercing. "That's the thing, ma'am. You never asked." Caroline swallowed hard. For once, the queen of boardrooms had no reply. The story spread quickly across the business world. Headlines blared, CEO saved by her driver's languages in $1 billion deal. Analysts debated leadership, humility, and the danger of underestimating people. Some praised Caroline for closing the deal, but insiders knew the truth. It was Marcus who saved the empire. For Caroline, the experience changed her. She could never again dismiss the people who worked around her, never again assume that power made her superior. She learned a lesson she would never forget. Respect isn't about titles, it's about recognizing humanity. As for Marcus, he continued driving her, just as professional and calm as ever. But the balance had shifted. Caroline no longer saw him as the driver. She saw him as the man who had saved her when no one else could. And years later, when people asked her about the billion-dollar deal that defined her legacy, Caroline Price always paused before answering. She remembered the chaos, the panic, the shame. And she remembered the man in the crisp Navy uniform who spoke 9 languages fluently and carried the weight of her empire on his shoulders. She would smile faintly and say, "It was never just me. My driver saved me." Because sometimes, the person you laugh at is the person who will save your world. If you found this story powerful, hit that like button, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to the Black Visionaries family for more stories that will leave you speechless.